All right.
Hey
Hey there.
there.
How are you doing
How are
today?
you? I'm good. Good to see you. How was dinner?
It was good. Wings are always good.
Good.
So
Good.
there we go.
So I'm just getting people joining.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have many that have joined yet. So it's actually the first
So
time
Rebecca
I've
Ishida's
co-lived.
Rebecca Ishida is here. Are you guys friends on TikTok?
I'm not sure.
You should be because she's a therapist and she kind of specializes in this. She's really fun.
Didn't you and her do a live a little while ago?
Hmm.
Okay, I think I might have started following her because of that. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, you all got to follow each other. Rebecca says you are.
Okay. So yeah, I guess because we're like co-doing it, you can see comments for you and I can see comments for me, or can you see like both?
No, we can only see each other so
Okay,
far. So every now and then we can pause and kind of look through and
gotcha. Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I never done one before.
You want to do a match?
I was just clicking on it. I wasn't sure what's going on actually. What is that? Oh, that's funny. No,
It's just for fun.
I was clicking the buttons trying to figure out what was going on. That's
Oh,
funny.
good. Dan's here. Thank you for the rose, Rebecca. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, everybody that I had on was
So
on earlier. So far, nobody's
they'll
here.
come.
So
That's okay. They'll come. And people can. It's kind of cute because sometimes like we'll like joke around when we've got mutual friends on because they can toggle back and forth between us.
oh, okay.
So it'll be like you can be like, oh, well, Rebecca's on my side now, and stuff like that.
That's
So
funny.
so yeah, so they can support both of us.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Cool.
more likes, yeah. So yep, we're getting some people here. So hey everybody. So I don't know if y'all are friends with Ben or follow him on TikTok. Um, but he is out here helping people. He's a self-aware narcissist and he's I think doing your own journey and then helping people in the process kind of understand, just kind of like Lee does what a narcissist thinks and does, why you do the things you do, that type of thing. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is really just trying to bring awareness to people of like what's going on with it. A lot of people don't really have a clue, or a lot of people don't really know how much it actually affects life. And so just trying to bring a lot of awareness and some of that through my journey and through stuff that I've learned as well.
Great. It is helpful. Yeah, Rebecca's saying that she finds you very helpful.
Well, that's good. I
Dan,
appreciate it.
no, Dan. So I'm not even going to tell that story. Dan accidentally got me in trouble on a live by asking a question. I didn't know you couldn't say the word corn with a P in a comment. And so yeah, it's really funny, Dan. I got banned from commenting on him and Ashley's live.
That's
I've never
funny.
been banned before. So Dan says next time you need to talk about that, say corn instead. So
Interesting. So that was like you put
yeah,
it
I
like in the
know.
comments when they did that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Huh.
I was just trying to say that the ex that I was with was a corn addict. That's all I was trying to say. So,
That's funny. Yeah, I know. I
yeah.
had one live that got like shut down because I like started when I was like in the car and someone like reported or whatever and that shut it down too. Earlier when I went to pick up wings, I was like letting y'all know this is what's happening. If y'all want to shut it down, like it's whatever. But
That is so wild. Rebecca and I were on a live once and she was in the car too and nothing happened.
hmm.
He must have a hater. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably just depends on who's out there. So
So Ben was on live what, about an hour and a half ago
mhm.
for a little while?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were giving some really good advice and some interesting insights. Um uh, as far as the some of the stuff you were talking about, do you remember where you were going with some of that?
Some of it, I know, like a couple of people were definitely asking a lot about like narcissism when it comes to like parenting. That was kind of like felt like a hot topic. Some people were talking about um, like God and religion, and with that being narcissism and things like that, as well, like how that relates or corresponds. I feel like there was like one other trend that people were asking about. Well, yeah, people were asking about like
Addiction?
remorse, yeah, remorse, addictions, things like that. So I know like a lot of times when I've talked about narcissism, I said like most narcissists, um, they're going to be liars. They're going to have some type of like manipulation, gaslighting, and they're typically going to have like no, lying, addiction, and cheating are really like the top three things that I normally say like that makes up a narcissist, or like, a narcissist is going to have those characteristics. Um, just
Mm-hmm.
because like a narc is going to lie to themselves, a narc is going to lie to other people, a narc is going to have addictions, whether that's like you said a corn addiction, or whether that's something else, alcoholism, drugs, things like that. A narc is normally going to have some type of addiction, or it even could be some type of like obsession, and then a narc is normally going to be a cheater. And
Mm-hmm.
on what level you want to put that, you've got like physical affairs, you got emotional affairs, and then some people are like, my narc never cheated or anything like that, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe he didn't like physically or like emotionally or mental or physically or emotionally cheat, but like he definitely like mentally cheated. There was definitely like
Oh, for
even if
sure.
it's the aspect of putting himself, higher higher than someone else,
I won.
because that's really like what it comes down to.
Yeah, I've also had people say, well, I just don't think, he or she would have had time to cheat or whatever, and I'm like, they they could go to the grocery store and be cheating, right? Like, I mean, there's
Right.
just I just think it's sad, but it's just so prevalent. I know when Rebecca and I were on last time, like a month ago, we were talking about addictions and how there can be multiple addictions. And I know you were saying earlier that you don't touch alcohol because you know your personality, right?
Hmm. Yeah, my personality is very like I have a very like addictive personality. So like if I'm gonna jump into something, like I'm normally gonna jump like wholehearted. So like work was a big thing for me. Like work was like a really but I'm in a new job now, but before this I was working for Chick-fil-A, and
Oh,
Chick-fil-A
I
was
saw
like,
that video.
yeah,
Hmm.
like Chick-fil-A was my life. Like I worked for Chick-fil-A for 10 years, and like literally like 2020, like I worked 2019 really, but also like 2020, like I worked average for the entire year like 60-hour weeks. And so that was just like the norm. That was what I used to. That's what I wanted to do. That excited me. That was my addiction, my passion in one sense, but it wasn't
Hmm.
helpful for sure.
So yeah, Rebecca's saying that substances and experiences are supply. Um, and then my other friend Sela is asking, is it because of the lack of insight to deal with the trauma? I think she's saying, is that why the addictions are prevalent? Maybe like a distraction from dealing with things. Let me know if I'm wrong about that.
I could see that being a possibility. Yeah, maybe a way to I can't think of the right word, like sedate, maybe to sedate those emotions or
Mm.
feelings, or to have another way to like push down maybe that like shame, insecurity, or
Hmm.
random flashes of like guilt that might pop up.
So Ben, I have a question for you. Thank you, Sela, for the question. It was awesome. Um, do you feel like so sometimes I don't get shit from my followers almost ever. Like I hardly ever get trolls. But when
Right.
I do, I just delete them. So maybe they realize they're not going to go anywhere with me, but um I do sometimes get like questioned, or I see sometimes on other people's videos like if you're friends with one of the self-aware narcissists, and I'm friends with both you and Lee, aren't you just supply for them? And in my mind, I'm thinking anybody who is willing to put themselves out there, take that leap to be completely open and honest about what you guys think and what you do in in order to help people. I don't find that different from the intrinsic rewards I receive from doing this. So I was just curious about that. Like, how do you view that?
Um, yeah, I think like for me, like I've had people like say like, hey, like TikTok's just an output or just a supply place for you. And like for me, I don't really find that being the case. Like for me, I find value in giving people some information and having them like bring awareness to it. And just in the short time that I've been on here, being able to hear from other people and being able to see just some results. Like there's been a lot of different guys that have contacted me and that have like talked to me of like, hey, I
Mm.
think I struggle with this. What's some thoughts? How can I work on this? And there's one or two that still like respond back and forth. We talk back and forth, and there's a lot of them that don't. A lot of people, um, and there's a lot of people that give like hate mail and stuff like that too. But
Mm.
for me, there's not. I don't know. I find like a lot of my supply would go back to more of like connection based. And so like
Hmm.
connecting with someone on like a deeper level than it would just going off of TikTok or online. Because if anything, like I have to be careful that online doesn't make me feel more of a narcissist because sometimes I'll read the comments and I'll be like, screw you, because like I don't really care,
Oh,
of like where they're coming from at times. And so like sometimes I have to like look at the comments and be like,
wow.
okay, like this is where they're coming from. I need to try to think like how do I respond to actually be able to help give them, a step in the right direction, and like if someone's like coming at me, like that doesn't really like affect me or anything like that for sure.
Wow, that you just said something that's interesting. Hi the other Rebecca. Hey Lipstick and Ativan. I love my followers. They're so awesome. So so you don't okay, so you just said you sometimes you see these comments and you don't care. Like where I'm at with my followers, I'm still trying really hard to at least like heart every single comment.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is because I want everyone to know that I saw you. Even if there's absolutely no time to respond. I get hundreds of messages a day and I'm not even at 50,000 followers yet. I can't imagine what, the people with over the 100,000, 200,000
Right.
get.
For sure.
But I at least want everybody to know, like, I saw you. Thank you for engaging. So I do care
Hmm.
about that. And when you just said you don't care, I was just like, wow, that's such a narcissistic thing to say.
Yeah, I would say
But,
especially on the lines of like if someone's like attacking me, like I don't care as much as about like
oh,
if someone's like attacking me, a lot of times I'll pull up their like profile and be like, who are you? Like you have no followers, you have no profile, like you're just a troll coming on here. And so like with that aspect, a lot of times I just like will write people off if they don't have like the creds to be throwing up comments like they might or whatever. But
mm-hmm,
like what I have been
mm-hmm.
doing is I've been trying to go through and like sometimes if it's like something outrageous, I won't like heart it. If someone's just like, you know, all narcissists are demons and screw you kind of a thing, I'll just be like, okay, whatever, and I'll just scroll past it. But otherwise, I do try to go through. That's one habit I've been doing just so I can keep track of like what comments I've actually gone through. So like sometimes people ask a question and I'll heart it and then I'll like just start a quick draft. That way I can go back later and actually do a video on it. So like I know sometimes people are like, you like hearted my thing, but you didn't respond. I'm like, yeah, I haven't had time to like respond to it yet. But I think right now I like worked a little bit earlier, but I've got like 84 drafts or something like that. So I try to
Oh
work
my
through them when I
God.
can.
I have one. I should start doing that. That's such a good idea. I always try to take screenshots, and then by the time I have like 32 screenshots and I try to go back and find the videos, I can't find them. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's a really good idea. I'm going to have to
Yeah,
start
I
doing
just
that.
I just start it
Um,
and then I like click to start the video and record for like a second, so it'll let me go to the next page and then save it as a draft. And then whenever I have time, like the other day, I did some videos the other day, like when I was in the car, went to Costco and just sat in the parking lot and ended up recording a couple of videos like right then and there. So it makes it a little bit easier just to kind of pull up and record on the
oh,
fly because like
yeah.
for me, like I just don't have time a lot of times. So a lot of times my
Mm-hmm.
videos, I'll have like 8 videos in the row that have me like in the same like shirt or something like that because I just did them all at once kind of a thing. So like for me, it's kind of like going back and forth trying to do that. Let's
No,
see. Yeah.
thank you. That is such an awesome idea. Do you have a comment over there?
Yeah, I was just I've got a couple. Some of them just talking like some random stuff, but like someone mentioned my wife's page that they were just loving like the
Mm-hmm.
content on my wife's page. So that's something new that she's been working on. Like she's very much of an empath, so she's very insecure about some of the stuff she's put up. So I was really proud of her the other day. She got to 1,000 followers. So she had one video that kind of blew up a little bit, which is really awesome. But like when it blew up, like she got like out of I don't know like 30 comments, she got like three that were more like hater comments kind of thing. And she was like, I think I just need to take my page down. I'm like, no, I was like, it's great. Like you're helping people, but her
Hmm.
first reaction just to like some of those comments, I was like, they're gonna come. You just have to ignore them or block them, kind of thing.
So first of all, I follow her and I think she is a sweetheart and I think it's really brave of both of you to do that because, she's being honest. I mean, that has to be really challenging for both of you in different ways to listen to each other's content. But that reminded me of what you were saying before. So like you can just see a troll or a crappy remark and you're just like whatever. It took me years to get to that point.
Hmm.
And the only reason I got to that point is because I opened up a community forum in my city back in 2014 with another chamber member, and we didn't expect it to explode. It's got over 25,000 people. And there are trolls in your community that you would never, I would cry. I would be like, I can't believe this. And, is devastated. But it gave me a thick skin. So when I got to
Right.
TikTok, now I can do that. I'd be like, whatever, it's a troll. I don't care. But a few years ago, I would have felt like your wife.
Right. Yeah, no, she's definitely going off of that. I don't think I can actually like type back, but her name is Kayla Taylor, but she has two accounts. Her narc account would be Hope in the Healing. So I had a couple people asking what it is. Let me just make sure I'm saying it right. Yeah, Hope in the Healing altogether. Hope in the Healing is her account. I need to see about tagging that. Um, But yeah, she has a couple of videos. I don't think she has many, but the more people interact, the more it helps kind of build her confidence. Just that she's
Hmm.
helping. Sweet. Yeah, thanks for. I'll pin that comment if I can. I haven't
Yeah,
done
if
this enough to
somebody
know how
wants
to
to
do
tag
this.
her, Hope in the Healing, she's great. So my friend Mr. Wonderful says, I'm shocked to see an advocate and narc live together. I thought narcs were the enemy.
Well,
Well,
depends on the
well, Ben
day.
is a self.
Depends on the
It
day.
depends on the day.
Like I think
But
some
I like,
people see like me respond saying like, "Hey, my wife's still here," and they're like either I'm not a narc or like what in the world, like I'm all healed or something like that, and I'm like definitely not healed. Like we're definitely like every day is a struggle, and it's we
hmm
have good weeks, we have bad weeks, and it kind of goes back and forth, and it's stuff that like she'll call me out, she'll be like, "You're gaslighting me right now," or "You're like manipulating," or like whatever. Like it's very much like blow for blow sometimes, which makes it difficult. And it also makes it
hmm
hard because like with her being a lot more empathetic, having a lot more feelings and stuff like that, sometimes those decisions are based off of those. So like if she gets really frustrated, then it might be like, okay, today I'm leaving, and then tomorrow I'm not leaving. So like it's very up and down sometimes, but we're still working
hmm
through it. Like we've both been in individual counseling for a while. I've been since March, and then before that, I was in counseling for a couple months, and she's been since March or so. She's been in counseling, I think a little bit longer than that actually, and then we're now like 3 weeks into some couples counseling. We're kind of on the fence with the particular counselor we're going with for couples counseling. I'm not sure. We'll see. He has a
So
good heart, but I'm not sure if we're gonna stick with him long term.
if you
So.
stay in couples counseling, if you go to couples, because most of us, and not just coaches, tons of therapists will say, do not go to couples counseling with a narcissist. And
Mhm.
that is my exact experience because he would just, anything that was said, I would get abused all the way home in the car and for days. And he would threaten me not to say what he did and all this stuff. And it didn't take long for our therapist to be like, nope, you guys are going to individual. And she
Right.
knew, like, she's the one who diagnosed him. But if you're going the other way where you already know that you have the disorder and you're in individual couples counseling, I mean, sorry, individual counseling, and you are also in counseling, would you say that you would stay in individual
Oh yeah,
as
definitely.
well?
Oh yeah. Like
Okay.
I'm not planning on I'm planning on staying with my counselor till we move out of state or till I die, kind of a thing. Because it's just like,
Good.
for me, it's like I notice like a big difference. Like if I miss counseling like with her like 1 week, I'm just like it's a lot more heightened, and it's not like just going there
Mm-hmm.
like fixes it or anything like that, but like it's definitely like a lot harder like not having like some type of an output that's at least beneficial to me because it's trying to help me learn and grow than it is just being like another supply or something like that. So I think that's really helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm definitely going to be going to counseling like on my own, you know, for as long as I need. So like I've been going every week since March, or maybe like right after, maybe in like April I started going every week. First couple weeks was kind of like on and off, but
Good for you.
so like I like tried out probably like five different counselors for me individually. I went to see different ones, and like there was one that I was with, and she was trying to diagnose me as everything else under the book, like BPD, ADHD, like all this other stuff. And I'm like
Mm-hmm.
literally going through the
Mm-hmm.
DSM-5, and I'm like, look, this is me, this is me, this is me. And she's like, well, maybe you're this, maybe you're this. And finally, I was just like, I just fired her. I was like, forget this. I was like, you're no help to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if I have all this like criteria and data showing me this is how I am, and I'm trying to say, hey, this is what I need help with, and you're refusing to like actually talk to me on that level, but saying that and everything else, and then I was just like, no. So went through a couple others that like you didn't connect with, and then I went to this counselor. Um, I went to her in the first session. The first session, like I don't know what it was. Like she like got through to me, and like it was one of those people that I sat down and like sat across from her, and she has like Christian background and some like Christian aspects to it, but like she just sat down and she just gave me like no bullshit. Like she was just like straight to the point. She was, whether she was like cussing or whether she was like going off the deep end, like she was just saying like this is how it is. This is how I talk to my kids. This is how I'm talking to you, and like it like cut through a lot of crap. And the first session I had with her, there was like a point where I felt like somehow like really safe with her, which is like really like
Mm.
key for me to be like actually be vulnerable. And there was also a part where like I started tearing up during a part. I don't even remember
Oh,
what it was, but during a part of the first session, and like right then and there, I was like, this is not normal. Like there's something better about this one than there was in any other counselors that I saw, because like it felt like for once like there's an aspect of me that wasn't being fake. Like I was actually able to have like
wow.
something real come out.
Yeah, because I was just thinking that the ex, I'm pretty sure, well, I'm almost certain he's sociopath based on his diagnosis, but um, his favorite thing was manipulating people. Like it was his point of pride.
Hmm.
And every single time a therapist would get through and figure him out, all of a sudden I could tell. I could tell he was either got diagnosed again or was about to, because he would, this therapist is a piece of shit. They don't care. They care more about the LGBTQ community or whatever his excuses were. I was like, oh, okay, somebody just got figured out. So I can imagine where if somebody was being just a straight shooter with you from the get go and you knew that you could not manipulate them, that would make you feel safe, I would think, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And like they cared enough to be straight with you, you know?
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot
So
of
wait,
times, like a narc, you're dealing sometimes with deep down like some insecurities and shame, and being able to have someone across the table that you feel like isn't going to judge you for anything you've done or who you are as a person, like kind of
mm,
there's something that starts to click there that you're like, oh, I could actually be honest with this person, you know.
so
Um,
that like being accepted for exactly who you are and they still want to work with you
mhm.
probably felt really good.
Yeah.
Um, so Mr. Wonderful saying, I feel couples counseling will only make it worse, especially if there's DV. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Like, so what they're doing is almost a reverse situation. I think that I need to say this though, like Ben and Lee and the few other self-aware narcissists out there, it really is rare. So Ben, I don't think is trying to give anybody hope. If you watch his videos, he is straight up about exactly why narcissists do what they do, and there's no BS about it. You always say, I'm a narcissist. So like, just don't like get a lot of hope, like, oh, maybe my spouse can be the same way, because it's almost certainly not going to happen. So I just want to make sure that my followers hear me say that again, because I think it's important, especially when there has been violence. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
and I've
for
had a few
sure.
people in here saying that they were also abused on the way home from counseling or on the way there. So yeah.
Yeah, and that definitely shows right
Um,
away that person isn't interested in actual change. Like, at that point, I definitely say like stop counseling, because it's not going to go anywhere. So
mm-mm, no.
Let's see.
So people are asking about co-parenting. Are they still asking on your side?
I have a couple other questions. Um,
Okay.
Let me see. Yeah, mine are. I think mine are kind of like spread out. So if you have a couple on co-parenting, I'll answer a couple here, and then we can jump on the co-parenting thing. Yeah. So someone is like, "What's the point in lying? Why not just tell the truth?" Like in couples therapy. Like, I mean, typically, like if you're in therapy, like the narc wants to look as good as possible, as best as possible. So they're gonna lie, manipulate,
Mm.
and twist every single type of interaction and things like that to be able to look like the so they don't look like the bad guy. So if they can come out on top, they look like the good person. They can make their spouse that's there in couples counseling look like the bad person. And they've already started manipulating the counselor, which is it can be
Mm-hmm.
easy to do depending on the narcissist. Someone says mine lies constantly. No, someone put on here. They said not all narcs are compulsive liars. I guess I would agree saying they're not compulsive, but I would say all narcs are liars. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could say that not all narcs are liars.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that to me. I don't think I could swallow that. Um,
Yeah, me either.
if there's any violence or physical abuse disclosed, yeah, blah, end it. Let's see. Do narcs know about other narcissists? My narc sister tried mansplaining narcissism. That's interesting. Do narcissists know about other narcissists? I would say like yes to a degree. Maybe as um uh maybe I can't think of a way to explain it. I would say sometimes a narc doesn't know another narc. So like I was dating another narcissist. Yeah, she actually was probably more on the BPD side, but like I was dating another narcissist, and I didn't know it for a while because I didn't know it for myself, so I had no clue. And then as I started realizing it, I started seeing those traits in her and realizing how toxic we were for each other. I do think there's times like other narcissists like know about the other person, but they know in the aspect of the only thing I can think of is like laws of the jungle. Like, hey, that person's a lion, this person's a lion, that person's a snake, that person's a snake. That's the only way I can think to describe it. Of like, they might not know the other person's a narcissist, but they see like, hey, this person's good at like manipulating. Like a narc sometimes will be able to pick that up.
Yeah,
Did
Lee
you?
does some really good videos on the two narcs together
Yeah,
sometimes.
they're hilarious. And I mean, sad to say, like some of the stuff that he says, like I kind of feel like, yeah, that looks a little bit too close to some of the stuff that I've been through with that girl that I was with. Like I just didn't realize it at the
Hmm.
time. Like the push pull, pushing people away and then coming back. Um, Someone asked if I use a website to find my therapist. My therapist she's only licensed in my state of Virginia, so she actually can't go through anywhere else. But I just looked up a bunch. We just looked up a bunch of different ones. I looked up a bunch that specified with like narcissism. Um,
BetterHelp.com is a good site to go and try to find therapists in your area, and you can kind of search their specialties.
just test them
Yeah,
out.
so I wanted to say,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with yours.
so I have this friend on TikTok, and she has a newer account, and she's freaking hilarious. And she knows I'm going to say her name. Trauma Recovery with Mimi, and she does that one effect where there's the mustache
Hmm.
and the glasses or whatever, and she portrays her ex, and I despise him. When she does these videos, like I despise her ex just based on this filter she uses. But she's saying, so you guys got to go follow Trauma Recovery with Mimi. She's awesome, and she does some really amazing videos outside of the entertaining ones on this topic. But she is saying that her ex love to use whatever they learn in couples therapy and couples counseling against her. And yeah, I am very familiar with that as well. A lot of narcissists will do that. Um, that's why individual therapy is almost across the board the best way to go. It's a very rare situation that you can go to couples counseling safely with a narcissist. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's important sometimes to kind of put like disclaimers either on my videos or like Lee's videos or like we've seen. I know you've seen. I've seen a couple like people like pop up like narcissist people on TikTok that Lee's called out, I've called out, or like that one guy that went through a while ago that
oh,
everybody was like blowing up. We're just like, don't listen to this guy because like he's gonna get some people like hurt just by what he was trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Got to be really careful who you're listening to, you know. And I think a lot of people will hop on TikTok, figure out what is a something that's going to incite a lot of hurt or whatever, and or they'll try to target someone like you or Lee, and you know, to get attention. And I'm always a little suspicious about that. But yeah, anytime someone says something that you know is not true, like compassion heals narcissism and all the others that we're kind of referring to. Yeah, just be careful who you listen to. But
I've got one comment that's going back to that, like, do narcissists know other narcissists, from Josh. Um, like, do you think she was trying to say that she knew about narcissists in order to make herself look better, like as a manipulation tactic? Like, do you think that if she, oh, there we go. Like, do you think if she claimed to know about narcissists, she was trying to remain hidden? She told me about some crazy narc stories, and then the stuff she did was horrible too, but it wasn't as extreme as the stories she told. Maybe I'm just overthinking. So yeah, I would say, like, I guess I would explain it this way: the girl that I dated for a period of time that has like BPD and like a lot of narcissism in her, like when her sister ended up talking to her about narcissism, like she went through and talked through it to the place where she understood it, and she looked at her sister and was like, "Yeah, like that's me. Like I don't really care about people," and then
mhm.
like moved right on. So like she could identify and she could see like this is narcissism and this is how I have it, and she identified and even said like, "Hey, I'm a narcissist." But then she was kind of like, "What's the point?" and moved on. So like if a narcissist is trying to explain narcissism, or like a narcissism is trying to um, like show people narcissism in other people, then I would say typically it's a manipulation tactic trying to gaslight you.
That makes sense. Yeah, so Mimi is saying the best way that we can overcome narcissism is to raise our children with love and teach and I'm going to add to that, teach them empathy and all of those things. You know, there's a lot of hope for the future generations, but yeah, we all have to take that very seriously. And we've got Lay Disco Mama here. She's one of my girls. If you're not following her, everyone go through my comments and follow everybody. And then go hop over to Ben's and then follow everybody because you're all amazing. So,
Yeah, I think either I posted something. I might still have it in my drafts. It might not have been posted because someone asked, like, how to like not have like your kids become narcissists kind of thing, and I was like, teach them, like, don't be overbearing, don't be over controlling. Teach them how to handle their emotions. Teach them how to be like vulnerable, how to be like emotionally vulnerable, and let them come to you even if you don't agree with what they're coming to you about, and come in a non-judgmental way, because I know for me,
mm,
like, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't grow emotionally vulnerable, because I knew if I come and I bring up this topic, it's not going to get accepted, it's not going to get responded to with any type of um, just like acceptance of me. So I was like, what's the point? Like, I'm not going to go back and I'm not going to talk to them about this. And as a result, you get kids that are closed off to their parents. And then you get kids that, go off the deep end in a lot of different ways because they don't have that parent and that figure there to be able to work with them to say, like, hey, this is how to handle those emotions. This is how to handle that
hmm
vulnerability. And, I mean, to today, like TikTok for me, like I would say is a form of an outlet in as far as vulnerability goes.
mm,
Because like I started my TikTok and no one knew that I had it. Like nobody that I knew had it. And like up until this day, like there's probably maybe like 10 people that I know that follow me on TikTok out of the, I don't know, I think I'm up to like 16,000 right now. But like, there's a lot of people that don't know me, and I'm very grateful for that, because like that's not something like I want to be vulnerable. So like just recently, this past week, I started slowly, like, I'm starting to post on my Instagram. I'm starting to work on developing YouTube and stuff like that. And I'm starting to post those original videos, which is slowly like putting myself out there, which like for a while, like I did not want to do, because vulnerability, like heck no.
wow. Wow. I mean, I think that's great. It's kind of funny how like you and I are Facebook friends, and I'm Facebook friends with a few of you now,
Hmm.
several, and but I don't go the other. I don't go the other way. Like in my Facebook, and I've got almost 5,000 Facebook friends. I don't ever post my videos on there.
Right.
Partly just because I was never going to be the person that would do anything remotely looking like some sort of smear campaign. I blocked him before I divorced him, like a year before on my social media platforms, and I've not said one word about this person ever. And I know that he has, and he's, tried a smear campaign and stuff. That's part of it, but I do have a group for just women. It's for more like liberal progressive women. We've got about 2,500 people in there, and I do have several friends in that group. And sometimes I'll post TikToks in there. But
Hmm.
I think it's interesting. TikTok is such a phenomenal platform. I've met so many amazing friends on TikTok, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me that that would actually happen. Like I didn't
Right.
realize that like creators would become friends with one another, and I love that. It was such a nice surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I'm just starting to branch out a little bit on Instagram with like Reels. That's kind of like
Mm.
I've just been hearing from some marketers and from different things like that that kind of the Reels algorithm is starting to pick up like crazy as far as like gonna be competition with TikTok eventually. So I'm trying to get ahead of that a little bit and post on there some too.
I guess I have to do that too. I have to start a YouTube channel too. I started this first and now I'm hardly ever on YouTube, but I
I
guess
know,
like
right?
Angie Atkinson told me to do the shorts like you're saying. So I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, right now I'm
Um,
just trying to like build up content. So I'm honestly just taking beginning content from TikTok and putting that on Instagram and YouTube to try to at least build up at least some awareness before I start putting different stuff up there. And also right now
mhm.
it makes it a little bit easier as far as time wise.
Yeah. So Josh just hopped over back to my side. I love that you can do that though. I think that's awesome.
That's pretty
So
cool.
what other you so I have a question for you. How do you feel when you see videos from like people like me or like Disco Mom or anybody like who are help trying to help other victims become survivors? Like when
Hmm.
you hear us saying the things that we're saying, like is that offensive at all, or are you just sort of like yeah, or that they're kind of right, but there's more to it, or like what are your
I would say typically it's not offensive, because typically like you're calling it how you see it, and I would say like the majority of times, like I don't think I mean I haven't watched all your videos, but I don't think like I've seen like a video.
what?
I don't think I've seen a video of yours where I'm like, oh yeah, she's like totally wrong. There's some people that I've seen videos on TikTok and seen like posts, especially on like Instagram, that are just like bashing narcissists at times, which like I get that. Like they're they're not to be played off that they haven't done these like awful things for sure. But sometimes
Hmm.
like those can be a little like offensive, because I'm like, yeah, they are awful, but like, anybody can be awful depending on get the given circumstances. Like the thing is like sometimes they don't even know what they're doing, sometimes they don't even know like how to get better, and like being able to raise awareness isn't always just like bashing them. I think as a whole, like you and other creators on here do a really good job of trying to go on there to help people versus just,
Hmm.
hey, they're awful people. You know what I mean? So I think that's like the kind of
Yeah.
the difference for me.
Oh, that's great insight. Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel about you and Lee. Like you're here to help people.
Right.
That's always what I'm looking for. So that's interesting distinction. Um, yeah, so Sela is saying that when you said that they don't know, she's saying they choose not to know in her opinion. I feel like a lot of us have been with that type of narcissist or sociopath where they've even been diagnosed, and
Hmm.
they're like, no, I don't have that. That's bullshit. That therapist doesn't know what they're talking about, whatever. So, like, some people are in such extreme denial and they will go as far as they can to try to pin all their problems on the world,
Right.
and everyone else and on the people closest to them. Do you think it's truly that some people don't know, like, by the time they get into adulthood? Like, is that actually something that,
I
did you
would I would
experience that?
say from what I've seen that it's, let's say like let's say like if they do know, like those maybe extreme cases, it's like 1 out of 1,000,000% in one sense. Like it's there, but it's been hidden and buried under the lies and manipulation on themselves for
Mm.
so long. Um, I guess like one way to think through it is like the movie Inception. Like it's
Oh
they
yeah.
go through like
Yeah, yeah.
three or four like consciousness of that person to be able to get to one concept down there, and that concept down there wasn't even like, hey, sell this company. Like it was like, hey, like, well, I don't even remember exactly, but it was a concept that was kind of like different than the end result in one sense. And so like when you think about it, like a narc is kind of like the idea of like Inception. Like they build these false realities that
Oh
go
my
like
God.
level and level and level on top of each other. And as a result, like after a while, you get to the place where you're like, am I in the real state or am I in the dream sense? Like someone asked me like earlier
Mm.
about like, is it hard like when the mask slips? I was like, no, like what's scary is when you don't know what's the mask and what's not. Like that's really like for a self-aware narc, like that's where it gets like freaky. I'm like, am I making this decision consciously because of narcissism, or am I making this because this is actually who I am? Like where like sometimes it's hard to find that definitive like answer. So like I do think I do think at some point in time every narcissist knows, but I think people can go for such a long period of time. And I've mentioned before, like I had a couple people like question and like ask me like, what do you mean when you say like a narcissist like gaslights themselves? I mean, a narcissist will do that. Like they'll manipulate, they'll gaslight, and they'll lie to themselves to such a degree, like rewriting their history. So like I would say a narc gaslighting themselves would be like rewriting their history. They're rewriting and they're changing. This is what happened. I'm going to change how it happened in my mind, and as a result, like it doesn't affect me now, or it doesn't matter. I wasn't the bad guy, and being able to, when you have
Ugh.
that so many times, like level and level and level upon on layers, you get to the place where I think there's an aspect that they don't know.
That you just kind of blew my mind because I've seen Inception at least like 8 times. I love that movie. And I understood a lot of what I think they were trying to do with the denial or like uncovering things that weren't apparent on the surface, but I never thought of that in the terms of how a narcissist shields themselves from the truth, right?
Hmm.
Or creates these alternate timelines. I always use, I'm sure a lot of you did this too, but I always used to say to the ex, like, you can't rewrite history. It's already happened. Your revisionist history, toward the end, I would be like, your revisionist history is up to you. The rest of us all were there. We all know what happened. But sometimes I would like, occasionally he would get this look on his face, like he was actually like, wait, like, and I was almost like somewhere in there is some sort of awareness, like he would almost, it was almost like you could catch this glimmer of, wait a minute, maybe I did do those things,
Right.
because you would be like, how do you not remember, screaming and yelling in the front yard until the mail lady came and then turning around and telling her that you hoped she was having a nice day? Like, what do you mean that didn't happen?
Hmm.
How can you say that didn't happen? Like I remember when I moved here, she was still my mail lady, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you got out of it." Like she knew, and it's just weird. Like how do you rewrite history to the point that something I actually had audio recorded didn't happen? you know.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
guess what is
it's
that,
very easy.
survival or
Yeah. I mean, it's very
really?
easy because like I would say like as it progresses, it becomes easier and easier. Um, like I could do it now and like start to catch myself, or I could do it now and my wife calls me out on it. But like otherwise, like at times, like you get to the point where you've done it so much, it's just like an instinct. It's just like a knee jerk
Wow.
reaction to something that's going on. And I think it depends because like I've had some people like talk about their narcs about how they're like awful liars and stuff like that, or like they could like call them out really easy. And like that's true. Um, I guess
Yeah.
without
Sometimes
sounding
it's
like
true.
conceited, I would say like that's like low level narcissism or low level intelligence
Hmm.
sometimes because like if you're a narc, like if you're truly a narc, like you can play the field really well. Like not saying I'm proud of that, but like it's true. Like it's very easy to manipulate. It's very easy to gaslight. It's very easy to rewrite history, and you become really good at it. And you become a really good liar at it. So much that it starts getting ingrained in who you are, who you think you are, and how that interacts from like day to day. So like, you know, just it becoming like almost instinctual or like a knee-jerk reaction is like very easy for it to happen, which means it's also very hard to break out of it because you got to break out of like years of habit that, bad habits that you formed in one sense.
It's so funny because on the opposite end of that spectrum, people who are really empathic, like there's a lot of commonalities between the childhood between someone who turns into a codependent, enabling people pleaser empath, and then a narcissist, right? Like
Hmm.
the wounds are very similar or the same. But on the opposite side of that spectrum, I would be like over explaining shit like my whole life, like, being so honest because my parents are both cluster B. So I was trying to be the opposite of them, so I would be so overly honest. I'm sure people were like, it's fine, like you don't have to.
Right.
But like we almost have this compulsive need to overshare and to, and then if you're raised that way or you're in a partnership with a narcissist who's always projecting their stuff onto you, then you feel like you have to even explain further. So it's just kind of interesting the way you said that.
Hmm.
So Mr. Wonderful is asking you, do you feel like you are only like narcissistic toward certain people, like people maybe closer to you, or is it just across the board?
I would say empathy wise, it's more across the board. But as far as like the actual like narcissism, gaslighting, manipulating, it's more of like the people like closest to me. And especially like
Mm-hmm.
the person that I've like struggled with it the most has been like with my wife, than it has been with other people. So like I might show the most narcissistic tendencies towards her, but then be with someone else where I don't show any of those tendencies at all. And some of that is depending on the stage, is like love bombing or manipulation for sure. But like there is times with like different people it comes out different ways or different levels, kind of a thing.
That reminds me, have you ever watched Mad Men?
Just a little bit, not much.
So my partner Greg got me into it, and so we've been watching the whole show, like every season. I think we're in like season 6, and it's a fascinating the characters and the way that they've written them and like their backgrounds and all this stuff. There are different levels of narcissists in every character. So like this guy Roger, like you can't help but love him even though he's a total idiot. He just has this sort of lovable stuff like every once in a while that comes out and you're like, oh, and like Don Draper, but he's consistent. His personality is the consistent. You know what you're getting with him.
Right.
So not even really manipulative as much, And then the character Don Draper, he is very interesting because he takes a different piece of his personality and that's what he shares with each woman in his life. So all of them know a part of him, but no one knows him, like the whole of him.
Right.
And then one of the other characters I think is more of a sociopath, but it's interesting. I wonder if you would enjoy that.
Pretty
Um,
interesting. Yeah. I have to look at that and see.
oh, Daryl's here. Daryl's my TikTok bestie. Hey, Daryl.
So I got
Um,
someone saying, I think I'm a covert narc. How can I tell? And can I change? And then they say, how can you tell if you're a narcissist? I was going to kind of deflect that question to you a little bit.
well, I think that most people, but I mean, considering what the content of your channel is, I just want to be careful. But at least in my experience, most people who ask that question aren't. I think a lot of people who ask that question have been in an abusive relationship so long that they have CPTSD, and a lot of times they're just reacting to the abuse. They're matching energy, right? And then they'll say to them, but the difference is they're only that way with the abuser. They're not that way with anybody else. Um, there is a term, narcissistic fleas. So that sort of that leftover behavior that you have after being with somebody who's been abusive for a long time, where you react to other people as if they were going to be that way, but that calms way down once you get out of the situation and you start going to therapy and understanding and healing. Um, hey there, hey Beth. Um, but I mean, as far as I would be curious as to why this person thinks that they're a covert narc. Um, at least with a grandiose narc, you know what you're getting, right?
Right.
Like they're just out there, you
Right.
know. I'm the best, and that's all there is to it. Like, but where it's more covert, I think that is a little harder to identify, at least if you're the partner. But as far as the individual, do they have more comments as to why they asked that?
The only additional thing that they put was just saying I feel empty, but they haven't put anything else in there. Um, yeah, I mean, there's like some online quizzes and stuff just to give people like a gist of an idea. Looking over like DSM-5 and see like, or DSM-6 now coming out, like what do I like relate to, as much. Um, I don't see anything else. Someone asked like what my upbringing looked like. So I had parents that loved me, but I wasn't able to. I didn't feel like I was able to be like emotionally vulnerable, going through different aspects of my life. Definitely like an aspect of them being like overbearing or over controlling, was definitely like a big
Hmm.
part in my life that honestly wasn't up until I would say almost even like a year ago. That
Mm.
my wife and also myself kind of had like some hard conversations or hard videos that we sent to him that was like, hey, like this is how it is. Like, honestly, I remember it was about like a year and a half ago. It was during a really rough spot. Like, Kayla wasn't talking to me. She wasn't talking to me all day. Like, she was just like, I'm just so done with like you manipulating, like your lies, all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't remember what come out, but she was like done and like not talking to me. And my parents sent something, and she like responded back to them and sent like a whole video. And she was like, "If you love your son, like you need to back off, or you're gonna lose him," kind of a thing. Just because like the relationship and the
Hmm.
tension there was just a lot for sure. Let's
Sorry,
see.
I have a few of my friends are saying that they love the crickets in the background and that they're relaxing. So that's why I come out here, because if I walk like 6 blocks north, I would be in Detroit. So I'm
Okay,
in Ferndale, Michigan. So
nice.
like literally I can just go walk to Detroit. But we live in this really foresty kind of area, and so there's a lot of like we have deer here and stuff. It's really crazy. So yeah, so I like sitting out here. I'm glad you all are enjoying the crickets. I'm glad I could.
Yeah, today here
But
the
he's,
high was like feels like I think like 105. So I was like, yeah, I'm not sitting outside tonight. It's been
where are
really
you
hot.
at?
I'm in Virginia, so over
Oh, okay.
near Virginia Beach, so we get a lot of the
Nice.
weather off the coast. But yeah, it's been pretty hot the past couple of days.
Yeah, it was sweltering, just absolutely sweltering the last few days. It felt like a big wet blanket out here. We had horrible storms here too. We think that there were like some multiple potential tornadoes everywhere. I tried to open my front door and the wind was coming so strong I couldn't open the door. And almost everyone around here has lost power and stuff except for our little tiny little area right here. In my neighborhood, we've been fine, but it's been brutal out here.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've got the trauma lady's here. Hey, girl. She's from Virginia too, she says.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. Someone asked, "Is it only a narcissistic trait to not honor boundaries?" I'd say no. Like it could be like anyone, but it's definitely a more narcissistic aspect for narcissists to want to test and break boundaries. I mean, when you think about it,
Hmm.
like you have kids that are developing, they have narcissistic traits until they mature and grow past some of those narcissistic traits. Like when you think about it, you've got like your twos and your toddlers that they're all about testing those boundaries and breaking those boundaries.
Hmm.
And now you just have that in an adult, like it's really hard because like when I see a boundary, I'm like, that's meant to be broken, and which is not good, but like
So, so
it
you see
either
it as a challenge?
yeah, a lot of times like if
Wow.
I would say a lot of times for like from a narc perspective, if a girl sets a boundary, so like if a girl set a boundary for me, then that's either like a challenge or I'd probably think they were like flirting with me.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Really?
it's messed up in a narc set sometimes for sure.
Well, but see, I'm so glad. So Ben and I have been talking about doing this for at least 2 or 3 months, right?
Hmm.
Going live, I mean,
Oh
together.
wow, yeah, for sure.
And it just happened that you just happened, and I had just gotten up from a nap. That's why I didn't want to jump on with you. And I just happened to see you go live, and so suddenly we were spontaneously able to do this. But I really think, if you all think that this is helpful, let us know because I do think we should do more of this. It
Yeah,
is
for sure.
interesting to see, because we're coming from such different places.
Right.
Um, I
We
think
definitely
that,
have a
I
lot
know that you're,
to unpack from both of us, both of our sides.
because to me, a boundary was like, dude, I just said, don't touch me. Like, I don't want you grabbing me, as an example.
Hmm.
Like, and I would say this over and over. And so, like I felt like I was constantly being assaulted in my own house. And so as soon as I told him not to, guess what he would do? He would do it
Hmm.
more. But then he couldn't understand why I didn't want to have sex with him. Like, so it wasn't that he was violating my space and what I wanted, that, or the porn addiction or whatever. I hope I don't get caught for that. The corn addiction. Um, none of that was it. It was so then he would go off on these crazy tangents about why I didn't want to be with him. And I'm like, because you're violating my own boundaries. What I'm asking you not to do, you do more. And it could be in any area. We
Hmm.
can't spend so much money. We're getting way over our heads in debt. Oh, I'm just going to go spend more money on the credit cards then. Like, it was all the time. And so it took me a while to figure out, like, I'm going to tell him the opposite. And that's where we can get manipulative. That's where we can start to
Hmm.
have those narcissistic fleas. But I would tell him the opposite, or I would downplay something that I wanted. And then, of course, what would he want to do? He would want to do that thing. And I'd just
Right.
be sitting here going, like, this is not the life I want. You know what I mean? At all. But I never thought that you guys, or I shouldn't say you guys, I never thought that narcissists would see that as like, I knew that they didn't like to respect boundaries. I didn't know that you would see it those ways that you described. And I think a lot of us make the mistake of saying, well, I'm going to implement a boundary. And I know Matt Pfeiffer talks about this a lot, but like, the boundary, you can expect a narcissist to bust. It's the consequence that you employ that's important.
Right.
Because y'all are going to bust through them, right? I mean,
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely say from my perspective, like I'm definitely like the child in that aspect. Caleb would be like, "Don't touch me," and I'll
mhm.
be like, "Not touching you." Like that kind of stuff. Where she'll say, "Don't touch me," or like poker, be like, "Okay," because like that's it's like a big red button. Someone says, "Don't touch the big red button." You're like, "I want to push it." It's just yeah, it's
But
not
but
helpful.
that is consistent with all the research that shows that a lot of that does come from childhood.
Hmm.
So it sounds like either like if you were overly controlled by your parents, that's one thing. If you were overly indulged, that also can be one of the
True.
launching pads for raising a narcissist, right? So, but that's interesting that you just said that. So
But
rather
I
than
think
saying, "Oh, she doesn't want to be touched," you're going to be,
right. But I think like the difference is like when I do that and let's say I do it 5 times and I don't get a reaction, I get bored of it and I move on. But a lot of times it's the reaction that facilitates more happening. Like if if I can poke her and she gives me a reaction, then I'm like, oh, okay, and like it's not healthy. But I think that in some aspects like that, like setting a boundary and that's just a small example, so don't put that on everything. But like setting like a
mm-hmm.
boundary like that, like depending on how the person reacts, will depend on how much that person actually tries to push through that boundary or not.
So that's why, okay, so I asked Lee this once, but he gets like a million messages or whatever. But so gray rock works is what I'm hearing.
Hmm.
So if we're employing gray rock, that's where y'all are like, okay, I'm gonna go over here now. So
Yeah,
it really is about the reaction, and that it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative as long as there's supply or that energy coming your way.
yeah, because I mean, I'm having trouble like thinking of like specific examples, but like it could be a positive or negative reaction, and like in one sense, depending on how far the narc is or like what they're struggling with or working through, like they can they can take the negative and they can twist it positive, or they can take the positive and twist it negative, like in their minds. So like a lot of times it's not about the type of reaction because like you know I can twist it in my mind and be like, okay, like she's flirting with me, or like I can twist it in my mind and be like, okay, like she hates my guts. Like I can twist it however like I'm thinking through it, um, which is not healthy. But like when there's like no reaction, there's nothing for me to twist or manipulate.
Okay, wait a second. So, are you saying that if Kayla says, "Look, I've had enough. Don't touch me. I just want to be left alone." and
Mhm.
you go, I'm not touching you or whatever, whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
Um, and she's saying, hey, I said don't touch me. And you're like, but I'm not touching you. In your mind, you're seeing that as her wanting to engage in some sort of flirtation or interaction with you, even though in her side, she literally might just need her space. But you're
Yeah. Yeah, I would say
interpreting it that way.
a lot of times I can interpret it that way. A lot of times I can interpret it that way and then like figure out a way to make her smile. And then I'm like, see, like you're not actually mad at me, or like you don't actually not want me to touch you or like be close to you or like whatever. And yeah.
That's kind of heartbreaking because that's exactly what a child would do, you know? When mom's like, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed, and
Hmm.
finally let you come back out and cuddle with her, right? So that's interesting. Yeah. Um,
Not the greatest
so
thing
that
to
my friend,
admit.
the trauma. No, but I appreciate that though, Ben. Honestly, I really think this is important because it does give some insights that like some of us just on the other end, we know like we've researched narcissism for years, right? But like and we know what our own situation was, but hearing it from someone like you is willing to explain this and be vulnerable is really helpful. It really is. So they're asking, does the gray rock make the narc push harder for a reaction? I guess it depends on a little bit on the person.
Depends on the person, depends on the boundary. I would say it's almost like the narc wants to see like when you're gonna give in, so like it might increase in levels and then all of a sudden just like disappear. You know, like maybe the boundary that they're testing, they'll test it on level one and it doesn't go anywhere because it's gray rocks and be like, oh, okay, well, I need to up my game. Test on level two, test on level three, still nothing. Maybe it's like slowing down, or maybe they get to level five and they're like, okay, never mind, like this isn't working, forget it. So like I could see like a narc testing like a boundary and have it increase in intensity. But I would tend to say like the gray rock is gonna end up accomplishing more than
Hmm.
the other person reacting or like responding or yelling or whatever it might be.
Do you think that that has to do with the level of the narcissism or like the temperament, or does that have more to do like if they have sociopathic tendencies? Because like the ex that I was with for all that time, if I gray rocked him, he got significantly worse. He
Hmm.
would follow me around. He would stalk me literally, and we were married. I mean, like follow me in his car. He would not let me sleep. He would stomp, like just like a little toddler, you know, slamming on the
Right.
doors if I was trying to get away from him. Like it was really, really, really bad. Um, Eventually, it kind of worked, but even still, his biggest thing was making noise and sleep deprivation and hiding my stuff, hiding my keys. He changed a password on my phone so I couldn't call my clients. I had to go and get a new like my phone. I mean, it was just insane.
Crazy.
It really was insane. So, like, do you think that it depends? Is it a personality issue or is it like the spectrum?
Yeah, I would say it'd be like the spectrum, but then I also would say it also depends. Really, it depends on a lot of stuff. I would say spectrum, personality, but then also like what it is. So like so like for instance, like if Kayla Gray rocks me on like me like pestering her or touching her, like that's like one, two, three, done, you know? But like if we're in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of like a heated argument and she Gray rocks me in the middle of an argument, like that has the tendency to make me more upset because I'm like, hey, we were
Oh,
just
I
talking
gotcha.
about this, like why can't you talk to me now? Like why can't we deal with this problem? You know, that at times would get me more upset. But there might be I'm trying to think of examples off the top of my head, but there might be like a couple other times where like a gray rock with her like did did stop. But I also think it depends on the narc, depends on their level, but then it also depends on maybe like the type of boundary or like what exactly is going on. You know, if if the narc's already like teed up in one sense, then I could see Grey Rock just pissing him off even more. If maybe like
Hmm.
things are like sort of neutral, like maybe it's like neutral gaslighting versus like yelling gaslighting, like vice versa. I know that's If just throwing that out there, there's probably like a lot of different, thoughts on just that. But like, I could see like different levels causing different reactions. So I know I couldn't say like gray rock is gonna blanket statement work for everything and everybody. No, not at all. But I do know that depending on the person and like the levels and maybe the actual like boundaries that the person's trying to gray rock, they could have better results depending on what it is. Um,
So I know that rage can be a drug of choice. I remember my mother was like that, my father for sure. And of
mhm,
course, the ex was like that. And he admitted it to me once. He said, when I'm raging, it's just like, oh, it feels so good. That's why I love to get in fights with you. And I was just like, what? Like, I couldn't understand that. And then, that I learned more about it. And the therapist said, yeah, that's a replacement for other. Rage can be an addiction, is what basically
mhm.
she was saying, and that some narcissists really get a high off of that. Is that something you experience, or?
I wouldn't say necessarily like high off of it. Um, but yeah, it it does have a tendency to show up. It's been stuff that I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely been dealing with a lot, and I would say and I would think Kayla would say this too. Like if she was here, if she was on, like my like rage and my anger now compared to 8 years ago when we first got married, like is much improved and is a lot different. And
Mm-hmm.
some of that, like my anger and stuff like that, like I worked on before I even knew anything about narcissism. Like some of that was, like growing up, I know like my dad had some of those angry characteristics kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing, and like mine come about like mine I've identified a little bit more like around like triggers. So like I don't for me, I'm not an angry person and I don't get angry that often. Um, I'm an Enneagram 8, so I'm like passionate. And a lot of times when I communicate stuff to people, like especially in like a work environment, like they'll think I'm like pissed and I'm like, dude, you haven't even seen me angry. Like I'm not even close, kind of a thing. But like
Mm-hmm.
for me, like anger and rage are triggered most when it feels like I'm not like respected or heard, which obviously could be really bad in like the middle of an argument when both people are like attacking each other in one sense. Like that's where it has to be. But as far as like I feel I get angry and I have like the rage moments, but as far as now compared to 6, 7, 8 years ago, like they're a lot fewer and far between. Like earlier on in the marriage, like it was much more prevalent, and at that time it was a lot of it was based on just anything and everything. Like I know you did a video a while back that I stitched, so like the craziest thing like a narc got upset about and stuff like that. And like that was how it was. Like early on the marriage, like there was like crazy stuff that I would just get mad at, and then like I would get really like heated and mad and like arguments and stuff like that. And I was never like physical to her, but like I was definitely like physical to objects, like punching something or hitting something or throwing something, like not at her, but just like around the house or something like that. Like there was just a lot of times like that that anger and that rage that I felt like inside in those moments that I didn't know how to get out. And like looking back now, understanding more about narcissism, a lot of it was like different feelings that I didn't know how to process. And, since I didn't know how to process, I had maybe like, I don't know, at that point, maybe like three emotions I could use, and it wasn't happiness. So, like, it's got to be this kind of a thing. And so that's how some of it kind of like reverted to it.
So, Sela, I just followed you, Sela. I'm trying to follow all of you if we don't follow each other already. Says that this is really hard to hear, and I agree because I've been on the receiving end of that, and I was just thinking while you were describing that what that must have been like for Kayla.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious, like when you've seen some of the videos that are out there of these abusers raging on TikTok, does that have an does that have an effect on you, or do you go, God, I used to do that? Like I'm glad that I've changed that behavior because I wouldn't want to scare my wife or children or whatever. Like, do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I think like some of it is kind of like I'm glad I'm not as bad as I was. Like I'm glad I'm not like that anymore. And like some of it too, there's also at times like a disconnect, um,
Mm.
that like I don't remember. There's times that
Oh.
like Kayla might tell me like, yeah, you did this. Like the one time I stitched that one video, where either I stitched it or she stitched it, where like I got mad about like what type of noodle she used or something like that. I was like I don't remember that. Like that, like different things that she's like I remember only like a couple times early on that like I had like rage and like I like hit something or whatever. Like I remember like in our first apartment, like we were in the middle of like an argument or whatever, and I like turned and I like punched the detergent and it like blew up. It like exploded everywhere. And like I remember that. But like there'll be other things that she'll be like, yeah, you used to yell at me for this or you used to do this, and I'm just like I'm sorry, but like I don't even remember that. Like there's things like that that's sometimes like a big like disconnect.
Well, I like that you at least can say I'm sorry, I don't remember that, but I am sorry. That's huge, because most will say, I never did that, you did that. I never
Mm,
said that. You said that. You're making that up, blah blah blah. Like
right.
that denial is so strong. I mean, and that's interesting though. Do you think that that is like a blacking out sort of issue, or is it just again like that lack of empathy, so it just didn't stick in your mind? Because like when you stitched that video of it was that she didn't use the noodles your mom used, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, like
Yeah.
what?
I think
But like she remembers that.
right. I think it's a combination of both things you said. Like it is kind of like a blacking out at times, and sometimes it's like you don't care, so you don't remember. Like I could definitely see like both of it in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's parts of like hmm, I would say I feel like a lot of times I have good short term memory, but not very good long term memory, and I don't know how much of that is
Mm.
contributed to by narcissism and not. Like there's moments of like looking at like the past or like thinking of the past or maybe like going back and visiting like an old area or something like that. And stuff is like deja vu. I'm like, I think I remember this,
Mm.
but like some of that is disconnected. And
Mm.
I think some of that does go back to, how much it was either dissociated or gaslit or lied to myself about it.
To yourself.
Um, but like but for me, it's not just specifically those like high traumatic places or things like that. Like it could be like growing up in like my grandparents' home, like driving past that and being like, this feels familiar but not familiar, different things like that. Just like
Mm.
long term memory seems fuzzy, I guess, a lot of times. But
That's really interesting. So what is Kayla's handle again? Because Mr. Wonderful's asking
yeah, so the one
for
with
her
NART content is Hope in the Healing. Hope
hope
in
in
the
the
Healing is her
healing.
handle, and then she's got her other one is just Kayla Taylor. Yeah, her other one is just Kayla Taylor.
So so Mimi's asking, and it's interesting, Mimi, that you're asking this because I remember my former therapist telling me that this was a possibility if my ex would ever want to do this, but it would take, she said it's like 9 months of almost daily. There's some neurofeedback to help treat the NPD, and what it can also do, like in the case of my ex, he had been a cocaine user, but I wish I had known things that I found out for like 20 years. So he had a lot of frontal lobe damage as well. But she was saying that there are treatments, and it also helps with ADHD as well, I guess. If I'm thinking of the same thing, but she's asking if you've heard about that before to help out with like the
No,
it's
I haven't.
neurofeedback.
Hmm, no, I haven't heard
It,
that.
it's not to say that everybody would need to go every day for 9 months, but in the case of
Right,
cocaine use that's eroded your brain, that would be a different
right.
situation. But it's supposed to be really helpful for lots of things, actually.
Hmm. No, I haven't heard of that at all.
Yeah.
Let's see. Um, let's see. Love is blind put on here. How can I tell if they aren't just hoovering and want to change? I mean, I think I mentioned this either earlier or some other time. Like every narc is going to tell you at one point or another that they want to change. The difference is, are they going to change? Like that's really
Mm-hmm.
the key. Is like I think like most of them will at one point or another like say, yeah, I want to change. Like, don't leave. I'm gonna change. Like all this kind of stuff. But like at the point where you actually see consistent, even if it's baby steps, like small change, like you can't really go off of anything they say. You know what I mean? They're typically going to be lying anyways. How can I heal after
And
18 years? Sorry.
change meaning long term, consistent. Not I went to oh I'm all of a sudden I'm in therapy because you said you're leaving me or you left me.
Hmm.
Okay, well how long are you going to stay in therapy for yourself? Because that's going to take years. Like you said, you're going to be in therapy for the rest of your life. Like that's the kind of commitment that it takes. And so a lot of times narcissists will see like, yeah, I have a therapist and I've been twice, I'm going to go 3 times. I've changed. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know for sure. I'd have to ask Kayla, but I want to say like when we first started talking about me going to see a therapist, it probably took 3 to 6 months before I actually went. Like it wasn't something that I was open to. Here's one for you that you could probably help out with. How can I heal after 18 years from narc abuse? I only think of narc. I only think of narc. Yet he was evil. Please help forget.
Well, you I think I just did a video on this yesterday, the day before. I mean, the one first step that you can really take is, I mean, there's several steps. Like I work on my clients with the inner critic and the inner voice, healing and mirror talk, and there's all kinds of stuff that we would do with self-confidence building and all that. But the very first thing you can do is start focusing on yourself. You are the most important thing in your life, and you, and not in a narcissistic way, but just in a self-care way, where you need to become your own best friend. And it takes a while. You need to start reframing the thoughts. EMDR can be really helpful for that type of thing because it takes the anxiety away from the memory, um, and it helps you to kind of reframe your thoughts. um, but focusing on the narcissist is going to keep you in that same loop, and it takes a while.
Yeah, I
So
would definitely
apparently you.
second what you said about EMDR. Like both, I've been through it, and my wife has been through it, and I definitely would say in that aspect of having like either trauma or like abuse or stuff like that, I think it's very beneficial to find a way to experience somewhat normal life after those
Hmm.
traumas, whatever they might be.
Yeah, EMDR is amazing. It really can be changing. So apparently a while ago you said like or something. So now I have some of my friends are saying, did he just gray rock us?
I don't know what it was too.
So I don't know, but they said you gray rocked me or us. So it's kind of cute.
That's funny. I don't know. I responded to someone's comment, but I don't remember what I said to. I think I just said when you said EMDR because I was agreeing with you that like EMDR is like helpful and beneficial in like that trauma. But I don't know. I'm probably gonna jump off here right around
Um,
like 11:30, so probably a couple more minutes and we can wrap up and we'll definitely need to set up these again because I think it's been really beneficial.
yeah. Well, we were only going to do half hour. It always
I know,
happens on
right?
lives. Um, so I do have a question. So Butterfly is saying, how do narcissists pick their supply?
Hmm,
Like, what are you looking for?
that's a tough one. Um, I feel like I can only answer that for me. Like, I feel like narcissists pick supply based on a lot of different circumstances. I don't think it's just one. Um, Maybe I guess the most blanket statement I could say for a narcissist is like a narc's gonna look for a supply that they can manipulate into like worshiping them or like um, treating them as like their god in their world kind of a thing. Um,
Like, like your number one.
mhm. Yeah, like I definitely could see that as far as like the supply aspect for sure. Um, I could say like I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
She just wanted to know, like, how do narcissists choose their supply?
I think like
Like,
I'm trying to think of like the best way to answer that. Like I'm not sure I could definitively say like how to choose a supply, but I guess I would say like how I know how I'd get one. And some of that is just like based on the connection that I can build with that person. And then from a narc standpoint, what does that connection do for me would depend on how much that connection I'd want to grow. Um, and like for a narc, that connection typically starts off as either like a friendship or like a flirting kind of a thing. And then you
hmm
keep it's like very much like low key like trauma bonding. Like it's not trauma bonding, I can't think of the right
hmm
word, but it's like it has the characteristics of that. Of you find which it has the characteristics of like building a friendship and flirting. Like you find something you can connect with, and then the next time you see them, you find a way to get that one thing back in the conversation. It builds a slight bond, and then you keep doing that over and over, and then all of a sudden you guys are like best friends. Um,
hmm
so at times it's like, how can you do that with people, or who can you do that with? But I don't know. I don't know if I have like a set like you know in a lineup. Here's the person I'd marry kind of thing. I think like I don't know. I bet we might need to talk about that some other time. That's like a
No.
whole can of worms that I feel like I could go on like five different tangents about some of that stuff.
Well, we can always talk about it next time, or you could do some videos. But it sounds like Lady Disco Mama just said "bam." Like it sounds like that resonated with her. What you just said. Um, it sounds like what you're saying is, who can I find who will form a connection with me? Like almost, like not even like a deep connection. It doesn't even sound like from what you're saying, but a connection. And how can I make them my new best friend? So that might be why the supplies aren't always even similar, right? Like the next
Mm-hmm.
supply might not be anything like you because it's really just about were they open to creating this connection. That's interesting. I don't
Because
think
like
that's been taught about enough.
for me, it's also slightly different too, and I feel like we could definitely do a whole live just on selecting, manipulating, and seducing supplies in one sense. Just even the video I did just yesterday or whatever about narcs being predators. I mean,
Hmm
that's a huge other can of worms that I feel like I could talk about like a decent amount. Just like sometimes what goes through a narc's head is like kind of like ridiculous. And even as I say all that, I lost track of what I was originally responding to you about. Yeah, I
It
lost
was
what I was going
about
to say.
like who do you choose for supply, and then you said a lot of that goes into the manipulating and stuff like that, and like you were describing how you could just create a connection out of anything, and then you said that could
Yeah.
open up a whole can of
Oh
worms,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
I think like one of the things, yeah. So ton of can of worms. We can save those cans for next time. But like, I think for me, oh yeah, you were describing how like sometimes those people are like completely different. And yeah, it all depends on like that
Oh,
connection. The thing that's like I would say maybe more unique about me is a lot of my. Okay, so like my first like girlfriend, girlfriend or whatever. It was like a hidden relationship. Parents didn't know about it. All this kind of stuff. Like how that ended definitely affected me and definitely affected like my narcissism journey in one sense.
mm-hmm.
And as a result, for me, typically everyone I dated was different, like different looking, different personalities, different hair color, eye color, whatever.
Interesting.
But after marriage, everybody that I had an affair with matched up to that first girlfriend. Like
So,
hair color, eye color, personality. Like it's freaky. Like I didn't even notice it, but my wife pointed it out one day. She was like, "If you think about it, this person, this person." I was like, "Wow." And so honestly, like the majority of the work that I did with EMDR was actually going back to that first girlfriend and like working through
mm,
that kind of stuff to the point where like it was stuff that was still on my mind like even up until like a year and a half ago, kind of a thing. And EMDR like helped me kind of work through some of that stuff because there was still, with everything else that like had developed, there was still an underlying part of like shame and blame stemming back to that relationship.
Mm. How old were you when you were in that relationship?
Um, like 15 to 18.
Interesting. Okay. So something in that time frame or during that relationship was unresolved or whatever you and your therapist figured
Yeah,
out.
and like it, I would say like recently, yeah, we've got a lot of stuff. We need to take notes of what we need to unpack next time. But
Yeah, we
like
do.
recently, I would say like with my therapist now, like one of the things we kind of identified some is there was an aspect of growing up in my family that there was this like emotional vulnerability, and there's this lack of emotional vulnerability and lack of emotional safety that I had in my family. And like my parents weren't these awful people or anything, but just like that connection, that emotional vulnerability wasn't there. And then when I got involved with this other girlfriend, I was involved with her and with her whole family, and I felt emotionally
Oh,
safe. And then
okay.
whenever that whole thing ended, there was that emotional safety that got taken away. And so then I'd grown up my whole life without this missing piece or whatever, and then all of a sudden the missing piece I found, which is awesome, and then I lose the missing piece, and then go through the rest of my life kind of like looking for it, and then get to a place where I'm
Hmm.
in a marriage and I'm still looking for that piece. And so I start replacing that piece with people that look like her. I just,
Hmm.
as we started like talking through it and learning more about it, it's like mind blowing, and there's still like a ton of work to do with it. But that's just a
Hmm.
tidbit of some of the stuff that we've been working through.
Well, gosh, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. It's really great that you are willing to share this stuff and talk to me about it and everybody that's joining us.
Right.
I know it's 3 minutes past your previous boundary. So,
Well, we can plan on
but
doing it some other time. So typically for me, I can, especially in the evenings, we could plan a live on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But the rest of the week, I work like early in the morning, so I get up at like 1:30 in the morning. So I'm typically going to bed at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, and Friday nights. Wednesday and Thursdays probably preferably, but Wednesday through Friday would be the
yeah.
nights we could look at sometime.
Well, I can absolutely do Thursdays. That's
Okay,
usually a day that I have that evening to myself. And so if everyone else wants, I mean, I'm sure they do because I we had a lot of people in here today.
for sure.
Um, so yeah, yeah, and I mean, I
What time
can.
works best for you? I know a couple of my followers said on the last video and then on the video I posted that they'd want to do like a little bit earlier in the evening, but I don't know time zone wise or anything like that for you or
Well, we're both Eastern, right?
yeah, we're
Yeah,
both
we're both
Eastern, so we should
Eastern.
be fine. So
So what do they mean by earlier?
like I had a couple of people because I had a couple of people in different time zones, so I was like, hey, like respond in Eastern time zone. So I got like stuff from like 7 to 8 to 9 kind of thing. So I don't know if maybe like 8:30 would work for you or if that would be too early, too late or
Well, I'm usually done with my clients around 6. So I mean, I
okay.
could do 7, 7:30, 8, whatever. Yeah, as long as you just message me and we'll just put it
Okay.
in the calendar and then what we could do is just let people know ahead of time next time so we
Right.
can kind of do some
Yeah,
stitches and stuff and
I'm
let
down for
people
that,
know.
especially if we do like a Thursday. Like if we do, I mean, honestly, 8:30 after 8, but not like super late because obviously we'll go for a while. But like if we
Yeah.
did like 8:30, like that would probably be like perfect. Like 8:15, 8:30 would be perfect for me because our daughter normally goes down around like 8 o'clock for her
Okay.
bedtime. So that gives me a chance to help if needed to get her down and then be free.
Yeah, let's make sure you and you have time with Kayla and the baby and then yeah, you want to kind of tentatively say 8:30 and
Yeah.
we'll just finalize that.
Yeah, we can. I'll
Perfect. Well,
finalize it, but we can shoot for next Thursday, 8:30.
yeah. Yeah, I hope everyone
Sounds
wants to
good.
come on back and then yeah, and if you yeah, yeah, everybody's saying that that sounds good, and they're saying thank you
Yeah,
for doing this.
save up questions, and we'll be back next week and go from there. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks,
All
Heather.
right. Nice
Take
to
care.
talk to you finally.
See
All
ya.
right, talk to you
Bye.
later. Bye, everybody.